Hello guys, welcome back to mathematics. Today we are going to check about vectors. So let's start checking what is a vector. A vector in maths and physics is an element that has two things, magnitude and direction. Since it has these two things, magnitude and direction, is represented with an arrow. An arrow that goes from a point to another. So we could say, for example, that the vector goes from P1 to P2. And we would represent it with this arrow. So yes, it's different a vector that goes from point 1 to point 2 than if it goes from point 2 to point 1. They would be opposite vectors. So the magnitude is related with the length of the vector. And the direction is related with the angle that it forms with the horizontal axis. Since this vector goes from point 1 to point 2, we could name it u and say that that vector u is equals to P2 minus P1. The final point minus the initial point. That would be P2 is 1, 5 minus P1, which is minus 2, 1. And we would subtract component by component. 1 minus minus 2 is 1 plus 2, which is 3. And 5 minus 1 is 4. So the vector u is 3, 4. Sometimes you can also write it like this with this kind of triangular parenthesis. Some texts use it in order to make it different from a point. So a point would have the regular circular parenthesis and the vectors would be represented with these triangular ones. So notice that this vector u, we could also represent it as 3, 4, and it's like if we move it to the origin. Notice that it's going to end up at point 3, 4. So this is the representation of the vector. So you are usually going to see the vectors represented starting from the origin. But let's see what are the components of the vector. So let's see the vector we had in the previous example, the vector 3, 4. So when the vector is represented like this, that means that it's going to start from the origin and it's going to end up at 3, 4. If we do a projection of the vector in the x-axis, we are going to get the 3, just like in a point. So we are going to call the 3 the x-coordinate of the vector. And since the projection on the vertical axis is going to be at 4, then 4 is the y or vertical coordinate. Let's talk about the magnitude. The magnitude, as I told you, is related to the length of the vector. So it's basically the measure of this length of the vector. So we are going to take the coordinates in x and y. In some text, you can see it just as x, y, the names of the coordinates, or sometimes you can also see it as u sub x, which is the coordinate x of the vector u, and u sub y, which means the vertical component of the vector u. Or sometimes they even use different letters, but they always represent the two coordinates in the x and y axis. So as we know, in this vector, the x coordinate is 3 and the y coordinate is 4. So in order to find the length, we could actually consider this rectangle triangle. This would be the uy, this would be the ux, and this is going to be the length. The length or magnitude that we could represent as this. In some text, you are going to see it with double line. They are representing the same thing. It's just a length as an absolute value. It's a positive quantity. So using the Pythagoras theorem, we are going to have that magnitude to the square is going to be the same as adding both legs of the triangle to the square. Or in other words, if you want to get an equation for the magnitude, it's going to be the square root of the x coordinate to the square plus the y coordinate to the square. So in this case, we are just going to plug in the values. So ux is 3, so it's going to be 3 to the square plus 4 to the square. That's going to be the square root of 9 plus 16, which is the square root of 25, which is just 5. So we would say that the magnitude of u is going to be equals to 5. Let's talk about the direction or the angle of the vector. We always measure it respect to the positive x-axis. So we are going to take this angle here. If the vector were in the other direction, then we would take all this angle. Or even if it's, for example, here, we would take the whole angle to get there. Or we could actually take this one, but express it as negative. Okay, so let's see how to get that angle. So again, we could consider the rectangular triangle. So we could use trigonometric functions. So remember, here we have uy, here ux, and this is the magnitude, which is the hypotenuse. So there's several combinations that we could use in order to find it. We could use sine, cosine, tangent. Is that usually we have the coordinates, x and y, so we usually use the tangent. Notice that the tangent of the angle in this case is just going to be the opposite, which is uy, over the adjacent, which is just going to be ux. So the angle is going to be the arctangent, or the inverse of the tangent, of uy over ux. So for this example, we would take the arctangent of uy, which is 4 over 3. This one you can do it in a calculator. You are going to get 53.13 degrees. You need to be careful because when you put this in your calculator, it depends if it's in radians or degrees. So make sure that your calculator is in degrees, so it's going to give you this value. If it gives you like 0.927, that means that you have it in radians. So make sure that you could change it to degrees. Okay guys, and that's the direction of the angle. So notice that we could express this same angle into different ways. We could say that this is the angle 3, 4, or we could also say that the angle has a length of 5 and an angle of 53.13 degrees. With any of these two information, you are going to be able to draw it. Okay guys, this is your time for practice, so please stop the video and try to solve these exercises, and then play back the video to see the solutions. Okay, the first one is graph the vector 4, minus 3. So 4 in the x and minus 3 in the y. So it would be until here. You just go with a straight line and graph it. Now it says graph the vector that goes from point 1, which is at minus 5 minus 4, minus 5 minus 4. This is point 1. To point 2, which is minus 2, 1. This one. And again, you just go with a straight line and finish it with an arrow. They are asking us what is the magnitude of the vector 4 minus 3. This one, let's give it a name, u, and this is going to be v. So for the magnitude, remember, we are just going to put in a square root of the square of both coordinates. Notice that it doesn't matter if it's positive or negative, because anyways, positive and negative numbers to the square are going to be positive. So this is still 16 plus 9. It's similar to the one that we did. So it's just going to be the square root of 25, which is finally 5. So the magnitude of that vector is also 5. And now they ask what is the direction angle of vector 4, 2. Let's draw that vector 4, 2. It's going to be here, and we make a line. So we are looking for this angle here. So remember, the angle is going to be the arctan of the vertical goes first, 2 over 4, or the tangent of 1/2. We put it in the calculator and we get 26.57 degrees. Don't forget to put the calculator in degrees. Okay guys, that was all for today. Hope it was useful. Don't forget to subscribe and book your own lesson with me if you want. Let me any question or any topic that you want me to explain in the comment box. Bye bye guys. See you next time.